We are in the midst of yet another predictable international break. I guess outside of the amazing news that Cape Verde have qualified for the 2026 World Cup, which is obviously amazing, and congrats to them. Always really fun when you see a first time qualifier, and especially a country as small as them qualifying for a major tournament. It's always a cool thing to see. But I want to look ahead back towards the Premier League and maybe even a little bit further down the line. I want to talk about the future of Mohamed Salah. It's been a rough start for him, and the last couple of weeks have been rough for Liverpool in the midst of a 3-game losing streak. Lost back-to-back Premier League games to Crystal Palace and Chelsea. Sandwich in between that was a loss in the Champions League to Galatasaray. And Mo Salah has been very, very underwhelming. He has just one open play goal in the league so far this season, 2 assists. Not terrible numbers, we're only 7 games in, but this is Mo Salah that we're talking about. He doesn't really do low numbers like this. And as we're seeing him not score goals, and as we're seeing Liverpool lose, everyone is starting to realise he doesn't exactly offer much as a team player. And that's not to say that he's a bad teammate or anything like that. It's just to say that his greatest contribution to a team was his ability to score goals and provide assists. And when that is not happening, it's kind of hard to play with him. He really doesn't offer all that much. He's really not involved at all in any of the games. He's been pretty non-existent throughout most of the Premier League games so far this year. And he got that big contract after an impressive year last year. Last year, he was entering the final year of his contract. And don't get me wrong, I was absolutely of the opinion that they had to extend him. He had offered too much and there was no obvious replacement for him, and he had more than earned that like those extra few years that maybe Liverpool didn't want to give him given his age profile. But now you're looking at that and you're looking at the situation and you're kind of thinking, how proactive do Liverpool need to be, and do they really need to now be looking at a potential replacement for Mohamed Salah and maybe hope either this summer they attract some more interest from Saudi and can potentially move him on, or maybe they can sign a somewhat replacement for him this summer or potentially even as early as January, and then look to kind of phase him out of the team a little bit as he heads into the final year of his contract in 2028, which will be the final year of his contract. I've signed a new 3-year deal, so he's under contract through 2028. Maybe they are looking at like phasing him out of the team. If his struggles continue, don't get me wrong, he could bounce back. But the way you're looking at him right now, you're kind of looking at him thinking he kind of used up all his juice to get that last big contract. And now we're kind of seeing him regress that little bit. Maybe the slight loss of pace, maybe the slight change of play style with Liverpool, maybe looking to rely on him just a little bit less, and that's just kind of completely destroying him as a player, as a contributor. Because Mo Salah has always been the type of player where either you rely on him fully or you don't really need him in your team at all. And that's like, I know that sounds like a completely negative thing, and that feels like I'm impugning the quality he has as a football player, but that's just the way that I see it, and it's not a bad thing. The best thing you can be in football is a goal scorer. It's the easiest way to be remembered. It's the easiest way to endear yourself to a fan base for life, to be an amazing goal scorer. You think of all the great moments Mo Salah has provided to Liverpool fans over the years, but it's going to be really interesting to see how proactive they are about potentially bringing in the guy that's going to take over the mantle from Mo Salah when he ultimately leaves the club, because that moment is soon. And I know he's got that contract for 2 more years after this one, but there's guys out there at the moment that could replace him. And like, look at the numbers that he's putting up right now, and they're just dull. There's just not much there. 2 goals, 2 assists. One of them, of course, was a penalty. So 1 goal from open play so far in the Premier League. Compare that to last season. He already had 4 goals and 4 assists at this stage. And between the return from the October international break and the November international break, he had another 4 goals and 2 assists. So let's see what he does in the few games after coming back from this international break. And even the previous year, he had 3 goals and 4 assists in the opening 7 games, and would add another 5 over the next 3 games. So that's just who Mo Salah has always been, an early season performer. He is always a player that has hit the ground running ever since he has joined Liverpool. He's always been a guy that does his best work at the beginning of seasons, not the end. So that's why you're looking at this now and kind of just having that worry that maybe that bit of regression is there. Maybe the way that Liverpool are maybe trying to play more through verts, trying to play more of an all-round team possession-based game is affecting Mo Salah's impact. And when that happens, that's when you start to think, is this their time to maybe start to phase him out? Is he just not that miracle, irreplaceable talent anymore? And that is the one position that they are very light. I know we've got Federico Chiesa is kind of there as the backup at that position, but I don't know how many people truly believe he is a guy that can take over the mantle from Mo Salah. He's had a few little nice cameos so far this year, but I don't see him as the guy to pick up the mantle when Mo Salah is ultimately moved on. And I'm not saying that needs to happen now, and I'm not saying that he can't bounce back and still be a productive member of this Liverpool team. There is just an element at Liverpool as a whole that they haven't quite figured out how to fully work with their new signings. Obviously, Isak only just kind of come into the team the last few games. Wirtz really still hasn't found his footing. The fullbacks, that's a new look for the team as well. This is a team that are still kind of figuring it out, and who's to say that when they do figure that out, and I believe that will come over the next few weeks and months, who's to say that Mo Salah isn't right at the peak of his powers again, scoring goals and being a lead contributor for this team? That could absolutely happen, but I'm more inclined to believe that maybe he is on the decline and he really did use up that everything he had in his arsenal to make sure he got that new contract. That was what his whole goal last year was, making sure that Liverpool offered him the deal that he wanted. He got that, and now it's just that little bit of motivation maybe is just gone. Not to say he's not giving it his all out there, but I think that little bit of motivation is gone, and we're really seeing that as an all-round player, Mo Salah really isn't all that. And the thing is that there's some obvious replacements out there, and that's why I think Liverpool, they need to be proactive in this situation. They can't just say, "Oh well, we're paying this guy so much money, and we just have to rely on him. He has to score. He has to come good." That may happen, but that can't be their mentality if they're gonna need a replacement. His goals, I know they'll be hoping that Isak takes that burden when he really starts to hit the ground running, and Ekitike and Gakpo can continue to develop there, and Florian Wirtz can be like the ultimate playmaker, control guy for them, and he can be the guy that they turn their attention to play through. And that could well be the case, but they're going to need a right winger to replace Mo Salah at some point, and there's a few really enticing options out there, which is why I bring this up. Antoine Semenyo has been one of the most fun players to watch over the last year in the Premier League. In terms of goal contributions since the start of last season, only Isak, Mbeumo, Haaland and Salah have more goal contributions than Antoine Semenyo. He's got 25, 6 goals and 3 assists so far this year. There was interest in him last summer, most notably, I believe, from Manchester United, but rumours also around Arsenal and Liverpool being interested in Semenyo, but none of the teams wanted to choke up the 70 plus million price tag that has been reportedly quoted. He obviously stayed at Bournemouth, signed a new deal, there is rumours, unconfirmed rumours, that there is a release clause in that contract, and you would have to think, considering he signed a 5-year deal, that release clause has to be somewhere in and around the amount of money that Bournemouth were asking for last year. So maybe somewhere in the ballpark of 70 to 80 million pounds. You would think that is the release clause that is in that contract. I don't know that for sure. It's just rumours at this stage, but that's what you would think. And you're kind of looking at that and thinking, is that the guy that could take over Mo Salah? And also you're kind of looking at it and like, will teams regret not signing him last summer? Because looking at what he's doing so far this season, he's really going to blow teams away, and he's really going to put that marker on his back as a guy that he's no longer about taking a chance on this guy. This is a guy that's going to be more than proven. This is a guy that could potentially contribute 20 plus goals and assists this season alone, and this is a guy who is going to be 26 next summer. He's going to turn 26 in January, so still only about to enter the prime of his career. So you're looking at that and thinking a team's going to regret maybe not going for him, and then you're kind of looking around the league and thinking Manchester United have just invested heavily in their forward line. You have to imagine for at least the next 2 transfer windows, talking this January, the following summer, they're going to turn their attentions to likely their midfield and right wing back, maybe even their defence. Arsenal, another team that already have a few wingers, but also invested big money in Noni Madueke this past summer. So then you're thinking maybe they're not going to be interested in a player like Semenyo. Manchester City have so many options there in the wide positions. Think of Oscar Bob, Savinho, Foden, Cherki, Marmouche. They have so much there. You wouldn't imagine that they're going to be in the market for a player like Semenyo. Chelsea, he doesn't fit the age profile of players that they're looking to buy. And then you kind of come back to Liverpool, and like on paper, you're thinking, well, they don't really need him for the left side. I mean, Gakpo's doing his thing there, and they also believe Ekitike could potentially play off that left side. And like, oh, they have Mo Salah. Like, of course, they're not going to think about a right winger to potentially replace him. But I think that's the idea, that the mindset that they need to have. And I think their only real competition will be Spurs. But again, Spurs are a team that have a lot of options at those wide positions. Kudus has come in this summer and like really seems to have nailed down that right wing spot. But we also still have Kulusevski to come back into the fray. Xavi Simons is likely more of a number 10, but we've seen him play out wide so far this year. Odobert is there, Tell, Brennan Johnson. There's options there for that left wing spot, but no one's really nailed it down. So you're kind of thinking they be willing to go in and make a big bid for a guy like Semenyo and really have those 2 wide spots nailed down and maybe have one of the best winger duos in the Premier League. That could be an area that maybe Liverpool see competition from, but there's some rumours out there that maybe they might even look to pull the string on this as soon as January. And I think that would just be an example of kind of the changed attitude of Liverpool and the aggressive attitude of Liverpool. Like, they're investing more than ever in the squad. Like, they invested heavily this past offseason after winning the league, which is something they didn't do the last time they won the league. And ultimately, they kind of dropped off a little bit over those next few years when they needed to strike while the iron was hot. And it looks like they're trying to do that this year. Though they've had struggles over the last few games, I think they're going to figure things out. And once we see Isak really cemented into this lineup, the fullbacks will nail down those positions. They've obviously had some injuries there. I think Liverpool will come good again. That's going to happen. And I think it would be such an interesting move to maybe go for a guy like Semenyo. And that would be a real testament to Liverpool's nous and just their overall willingness to do what all they can to make sure that this is just the beginning of another great Liverpool era and not just gonna kind of one-off like we saw during maybe the 1920 season. And Semenyo, like, he's been so impressive. 2-footed player. He can deliver with the left and the right. He's going to get crossed into the box. He's going to score goals. He's actually taken the most shots in the league over the past 2 years. So, I mean, he feels like an ideal replacement for Salah, and maybe he's not going to be a guy who can potentially put up the numbers that we have seen Salah do. He's put up some of the best numbers we've ever seen in the Premier League, and maybe Semenyo might not get there, but in terms of a guy who is selfish, who is quick, who is 2-footed, which Mo Salah really isn't, who is willing to get his shots off, who can take on players, who can provide assists, that's Antoine Semenyo. That's exactly what he does, and his ability as an attacking player was already impressive coming into the season, and watching what he's doing now, he looks like one of the best. And you see him playing in that Bournemouth team, and you can see that he's the level above, and he's going to impress against not just the lower teams but some of the better teams too. And that's why I think he'd be the perfect fit for Liverpool. And I think this is a deal that they should be really considering. Yes, it's a big price tag, but thankfully for Liverpool, they're so good at selling players that they're not really in danger around PSR, so I think they can still afford to make a big splash like this. Although there is other positions that maybe they need to look into. I mean, Konate is coming out of contract. It doesn't look like they want to give him a new one, and I think that's actually a good call from them. But unfortunately, Leone, the centre back that they brought in to potentially replace him, picked up a serious injury. Now he's likely going to be out for a year, so maybe they might have to invest some money in the centre back positions. But I think Semenyo is the guy that they should be targeting. Mo Salah is not going to be around forever. Mo Salah potentially is on the decline. He is no longer the irrepressible force that he once was, and I know he was just this past season, and maybe I'm speaking too soon, but Liverpool should be looking ahead and not be relying on Salah to deliver at the highest level for the duration of his contract, and they should be looking to invest in a player now while maybe they still have Salah, and not looking to invest after Salah has already gone. That's a mistake some other teams have made, and they've found it hard to replace these stalwart players. And don't get me wrong, it is nearly impossible to directly replace a lot of players, and Mo Salah could be one of them. But I think Semenyo feels like the perfect option there. And another important thing is they could maybe take their time with it, and they could maybe strike a deal, because there is the potential to think that in terms of realistic competition within the Premier League, Liverpool might be the only ones in the market, and that could really play into their hands, like it kind of did with Alexander Isak. Although there was other teams in the market, they were priced out of it, and Isak really wanted Liverpool. And it's tough to think that Semenyo wouldn't be a player that really wanted to join Liverpool too, and that would really play into their hands. Semenyo is a guy that's going to want this big deal, and on the one hand, you could kind of look at it and say he might regret not being able to leave last summer, but on the flip side, Liverpool are still there. Mo Salah's struggles are real, and that's a move that really could come to fruition. Liverpool fans, what do you think about that? Do you think Mo Salah is past his best? Do you think they should be looking at a replacement for him? Do you think Chiesa is the guy to replace him, or would you guys want to see Antoine Semenyo lacing his boots up for Liverpool? As a Manchester United fan, I can say I definitely don't want to see that, but let me know in the chat, guys. What do you think about Antoine Semenyo to Liverpool, and what do you think about Mo Salah? Is it time for Liverpool maybe to start looking beyond him, or is this just a minor blip and he'll be ready to bounce back